Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Gaswa Outreach Show. We are super excited once again to come your way one more time with another show. Please, what we say is that when you come on, please do us the honest, Please share with your friends and family so that they'll be able to come and join this discussion. This evening is not going to be any exception. It's going to be super. It's going to be wonderful. So please, if you are watching us from YouTube, please subscribe and click the bell button so that anytime we go live, you get instant notification. If you are watching from Facebook Live, please also do so by liking our page. And every time we go live, you'll be able to see us. We're hoping that today the technologies would agree with us. We're hoping that everything would work wonderfully. So we are hoping that today we're going to have a wonderful discussion. We'll be right back. Yes, again, welcome back. I'm hoping that people will join us. Today there is a bit of a delayed reaction here. I'm not seeing anybody yet. I'm hoping that everything is working well. And wherever you are, you'll be able to see us. So I'm hoping that people will be able to join soon. Normally, we would have had a few people join by now. I'm hoping that the technology and everything is agreeing with us and working well. Yes, I can see one or two people starting to trickle in and come in. So please share it around, remind people that this show is going on live and this is the right place to be. We are the Ghanaian Social Workers Association, GASWA, and for a very, I'll say from, I believe about April, we've been bringing weekly and recently fortnightly shows for us to have these conversations. So I'm hoping that people will join in, and I can see people coming in. Please, when you come, leave us a comment. Please leave us a comment, say hello to us so that we know that you can hear us, you can see us, and everything is working live and clear. So thank you very much for that. Yes, so we've been promising a few times that we'll be bringing you shows and topics that are important to you. And this evening is no exception. This evening, we are choosing a very important topic. But before we do that, let me just quickly remind you of who we are again. We are the Ghanaian Social Workers Association. We are GASWA. And as we've said, that please, contact us if you need us. If you, we are about preventative work. So contact us if you need us to come to your congregations and your Zoom meetings to come and have some of these discussions to prevent things from happening. I am so happy and I'm so excited today because I promised, viewers and listeners that, we are going to be having co-hosts. And the last 2 weeks when we had our show, we had our treasurer from GASWA, Madam Ophelia Texan, come to join us, and we had a wonderful discussion. And this evening, we have our outreach lead. She's the woman behind the scenes. She's the woman who makes things happen. She's been the person who has been instrumental in making sure that we go to churches and we have some of these programs. She is Madam Angela Appiah, and I'm so excited to have her here join us. So I'll be bringing her, and again, I'll be introducing our guests as we go along. But for now, please let's show some love to Madam Angela Appiah, who is right in front of your screen. Madam, hello.
Hello.
How are you this evening? And please tell us a little bit about what you do at GASWA, and how you feel about this evening's conversations.
I'm good, thank you. Thanks a lot. I'm happy to be here. I'm a family member already. So this is GASWA, Ghanaian Social Workers Association. We are about a service to the community. My name is Angela. I'll be co-hosting the show tonight with my boss, Mr. Kwekwa Fram. I am the outreach lead in GASWA. I'm a social worker. We all are. So what I do pretty much in Gaswa is to lead and then champion the causes of going out to the community, to
Mm,
do the outreach work, to create the awareness of our presence in the community, and to help people understand the role of social services within the community, especially our own local communities, so that people are aware about safeguarding, how to protect their children, how to protect their families, and how to live a fulfilled family life,
mm,
and avoid any problems that they might encounter, which is avoidable through the social services system. So that's my role within GASWA, and I'm
mm.
happy to be co-hosting the show tonight.
Thank you very much, Madam Angela Pia, for coming to assist in today's conversations. Um, Look, what have we said to people? We've said to people that today we are going to treat a serious topic, and that is one of domestic abuse, which is a real threat to our society. We noticed that since lockdown, that the numbers quadrupled. The numbers, quadrupled in terms of incidents, in terms of how this issue is affecting people. So, what we've been saying is that these are some of the topics that we would want to bring to the attention of people. In all honesty, this is about the second time that we've treated this topic, and it's because of how important this topic is. And so we want people to interact, we want people to get in and people to get involved with this topic. Let me ask Madame Angela a little bit about how important she thinks this topic is before we carry on.
Right. We are talking about domestic abuse, a
Yes.
real threat to our society. In
Mm,
fact, this cuts across, not
mm,
necessarily for just our own local community.
mm,
Domestic abuse has been one of the biggest issues across the world, across religious groups, ethnic, groups. It just cuts across everywhere.
mm.
And we think it's quite important, through this pandemic,
Yes.
national health pandemic, which has led to, a lot of families staying together.
Mm,
People are now discovering who their partners are.
mm,
People are now getting to know who they are really married to or who they are in relationships with.
mm,
So children are discovering who their parents are,
mm,
so there's a lot of family issues, family row disagreement
mm,
between couples, between father and son, between mother and daughter,
mm,
going on between teenagers and their single mothers. There's a lot
mm,
going on out there.
mm,
So within the lockdown period, domestic violence has risen. We know the statistics has gone way high. And
mm,
it's all because of the fact that families have been locked in now. So we
mm.
think this is just about the right time to bring this topic on board, to talk about it, to discuss it and see ways that we can all, the strategies that we can all adapt to keep ourselves safe and keep our families safe. So, it is a very, very key topic to discuss at this particular point in time,
Yes.
in the midst of all these chaos going on. So, yes, that's why we brought this show to you. It's going to be an exciting show. There's nowhere else to be than this place. Join in and let's discuss this issue, domestic abuse. We are going to be talking about the emotional abuse, the physical abuse, the financial abuse, you name it. So, I'm very glad that we have this topic to treat one more time. We can never get exhausted. We can
Yes.
never finish talking about this. So, yes, glad
Yeah.
to be here.
And briefly, I mean, go to BBC2 and break it down in our local language, just in a few seconds.
Well, I'm for yeah, what has a can't be a friend domestic violence. And he say,
Mhm.
when you be wo say our room, say ya uba, say yeah, a beer, uni ni pano, eshaho, whatever it is. Na and you may be cause war, relationship ni moi, and Fanny J. Emma, a beer, bro, be or baby. Ebi a kasa bi a ma nipa mehu sɛ na meka lose self esteem ateatea jojo and a friend emotional abuse either sɛ woyɛ parent na wode yɛ wo ba anaasɛ either sɛ awarefoɔ mode yɛ mo ho na bi a biribi ketewa bi na woyɛ yi ne nsa na wabɔ ne yɔnko biribi ketewa bi na woyɛ pushi wei na ɔda ha na enti ayɔnkofa na ɛda busua ntɛm no ɛnneɛma so papa da bi obi bu afu da bi bibi nkɔ yie na ɛde nneɛma bebree ba asetena nim aho na no ho nkɔmmɔ na yɛbɛdi sɛ de be obi abuse obi sɛ de be obi go beyond or amoro so ɛma ne nkɔyɛ sɛ wo de ani ɛyɛ ne afeti ne ayakayaka de ɛyɛ wo ankasa wabusuani wo kunu wo yere wo ba ana obi sa wo ne wo fie aha de ɛba saa mraya adwuma authorities get involved get involved ebe stretch out the nneoma bebree bebe nti adwuma di ebedi ne nanwumre ni sɛ yɛbɛ di ho nkɔmɔ na yɛ nyinaa yɛ ato adwene ne aboaboa yɛ ho sɛ na ɛbɛyɛ a saa nneoma no yɛbɛ prevent ne mehu sɛ yɛbɛ bɔ mmɔden sɛ yɛma ne nsi yɛbɛhu nneɛma ɛsɛ yɛde toto no akwan mu na yɛde esi saa adeɛ no ano kwan koraa ansa
Well done. Well done. Wow. Your tree is much better than mine. Your tree is absolutely better than mine. Oh my days. All of a sudden, we've gotten a lot of people who are joining us. Yes. Want to say hello to Madame Loretta, who has joined us. She has been one of our regular viewers. Thank you very much, Madame Loretta, for joining. We also have Madame Ekia Frema, who's also joined, Akwaba, and hello to you. Obaya Asamoah, who happens to be our one of our welfare leads, is also watching us. Obaya, Akwaba, and please make sure that you will engage in this topic because, as we said, that is going to be super exciting. Madame Latifa Jones, hello to you too, and thank you very much for again joining us. Oh, Jemima, what can we say? Inshriaba, Mami, Mensi Mabwatin, thank you very much for joining. And you always come through with us and you show us a lot of love. So we really appreciate you. And thank you for joining. And again, we want to say hello to Francie Ekia, who's also saying good evening. Good evening to you too. So I'm hoping that, you'll be able to have a wonderful discussion tonight. Let me quickly, share this, that today we'll be looking at a very important and sensitive topic. And we need to sound a caution out there that this discussion may bring some raw emotions for you. This discussion may, make you relive some terrible experiences you may have had because the statistics are there. 1 in 3 women have suffered some form of domestic abuse in their lifetime, and 1 in 4 men have suffered some domestic abuse in their lifetime. So it's something that affects everybody, just like Madam Angela said, whether you are rich or you are poor, whether you are tall or you are short, whether you are black or you are white, it affects everybody. So this is a very important topic. And we're saying that, please, if you are affected by this, talk to somebody. If you can talk to us, call us on our numbers, and we will be more than happy to take you to do some counseling, or call any of the numbers that we've put on the screen there, and so that you'll be able to have a way to manage some of these issues. So thank you very much for that. Yes, so we've assembled some, as we always do in Gaswa, we've assembled some very knowledgeable guests who are going to help us, break this topic down a little bit. So we have a special guest amongst us. and I want to bring her on screen so that she can say something to us. So, can we ask Madame Charmaine to unmute herself and then say hello to us? Hello, Madame.
Hello, hope you are all well. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm really sorry I've got a very broad Birmingham accent, so I hope you can understand me.
That is absolutely fine. Charmaine, please tell us a little bit about what you do and then why this topic is important to you.
Okay, so I'm a volunteer coordinator, but I worked in domestic abuse for many years now. I went to university and did a module on domestic abuse and was looking at the domestic abuse of men, and really got interested in working with around that and had to work with women. It means a lot to me because, especially in the Black community, we don't have a lot of women coming forward for help. And we know it's rife, we know it's happening, but we also know that there's some restrictions within our culture. So it's really important for me, not only for women, but men who are victims of domestic abuse to have a voice. And this is why I work in this area.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you for coming and honoring our invitation to come and discuss this topic.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to bring on one of our regular members. He happens to be our financial secretary in Daswa, but a very knowledgeable man indeed. Mr. Asamoah, aka Martin Luther King, is no stranger to our shows. He's been on a few times. So, Mr. Asamoah, for those who are maybe tuning in for the very first time, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and why this topic is important to you.
Hello everyone, good evening for tuning in to this program. My name is Martin Asamoah, or popularly known as Martin Luther King. Okay, so I'm a practicing social worker. I work in the child protection arena. And this topic is very, very important to me. It's dear to my heart because on daily basis, I come across with this incident, unfortunate incidents, and I witness and experience the hidden harm, the damage that children suffer, children who live in domestic abusive relationships, the impact that they go through, what we call hidden harm, the impact on the women, and unfortunately, on few occasions, men who are also the victims. Okay, so today's topic, I will be more focusing on the safeguarding and the impact on the children. And I'm sure Charmaine, from her experience, will also be hammering, digesting on the impact on the adults, more especially and more importantly on the women. So I'm looking forward to have this important discussion tonight. Please stay tuned and listen and contribute.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Asamoah, for that. And please invite, and I'm going to take a cue from one of our guests who came on last week's show. Invite 4 friends. Invite 4 friends. Tell them this is the right place for you to be. So invite 4 friends to come and join this conversation. And we're not going to waste time at all. Let's introduce a few people who have joined us since. Oh, Madame Ekia Frema says, our welfare guru, acknowledging our welfare lead who was joining us. And Madame Julie Thompson is our #1 super fan. She is unbeatable. She's joined every single show that we have transmitted or broadcasted since we started. And without fail, she's always here. Madame Akwaba to you too. We are so excited. And we have a number of people who are watching. We can see that Albi is watching. Thank you very much for watching. Efua Yamwa is watching. I can see Reggie is also watching. Miriam is watching. Ousu Obo Norbert is watching. A lot of people are watching, and we are really appreciative. Please share it around and let people tell people to come and be part of this conversation. Look, as we said, that this topic affects all of us. affects all of us in various ways, and sometimes we don't even recognize it because we've normalized it so much. So we're going to get straight into the conversation, and we're going to start off by looking at what it is actually. So let's start off with Charmaine, if she can just break it down a little bit to tell us what domestic abuse is.
Okay, so domestic abuse is about abuse within a relationship, and the relationship doesn't have to be romantic. And he's looking at the impact as well of the types of abuse that happens within domestic abuse. So we've spoken very briefly on the impact on women. So we know that men, it can be older people who suffer from domestic abuse. So it's about an abusive relationship with two people, but that doesn't just extend to romantic relationships.
Okay, Angie.
Yeah.
Do you want to come in a bit?
Yeah, just want to come in. If Charmaine can, elaborate a little bit on what it actually does to either the victims or the perpetrators. We domestic abuse happens in relationships, and it could be, it might not even be in a relationship. But if you can tell us a little bit more about, what does it do to the victims or even the perpetrators?
Yeah, so in my experience, so I work with the women who have been victims of domestic abuse. It impacts on them on many levels. It can affect their relationship with their children, to the point where they can have their children taken away because of the level of protection around that. It impacts on their self-esteem, their confidence, their understanding sometimes what domestic abuse is and how it affects them. It can link them into levels of denial. It can impact on their close family and friends because they don't want to be involved and see what's happening to the women. So that therefore isolates them and leaves them alone with their perpetrator. For the perpetrator, it's about having full control over somebody and using really manipulative and, I can just say, nasty ways to control somebody into doing what they want them to do all the time. So the perpetrator seems to get everything they want through this horrible level of power over somebody, and then they reduce the empowerment, the self-esteem, the whole well-being of another person, and it reduces them until they don't know who they are. Sometimes they come to us, they're so lost, they're upset. Some people can't even believe that it's been happening so long to them. So it's a devastating and impact effect on them and people around them, and it just isolates them, and they can have depression from it. They can have other mental health issues from that as well. So when they come to us, they are really at their lowest ebb.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Can I come to you, Mr. Martin Luther King, please? If you can just give us the types of domestic abuse. I think now we know what it is, and what it does to the victim. The victim is the person who is at the receiving end of the abuse, and the perpetrator is the one who is actually inflicting the abuse or the injuries, whatever, whether it's physical or whatever, on the other person. So now we know the clear difference of who a victim is and who a perpetrator is and what it does. If I can come to you, please, Martin, and if you can talk us through the types of domestic abuse.
Thank you, Angie. So before I go through the types of domestic abuse, can I briefly add a little bit more about the definition?
Sure.
So domestic abuse is any type of controlling, bullying, threatening, or violent behavior between people in a relationship. This can seriously harm children and young people who witness these forms of abuse. And it's also important to remember that domestic abuse can happen inside and outside the home environment. It can happen over the phone and on the internet, on social networking sites. It can happen in any relationship and can continue to even after the relationship. So ex-partners domestic abuse can still prevail. Both men and women can be abusive or abused in relationships, but insignificant, evidentially, most of the victims happen to be women. That does not mean to say that men cannot be victims also. So, can I go to the types of domestic abuse? So, domestic abuse can be emotional.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Martin Luther. Are you trying to say that in terms of statistics, the women are more prone to become victims of domestic violence as compared to men?
That's correct. Statistically.
Okay. Let's just make that clear. That statistically, women are more vulnerable. Or are more to be a victim than the men, yeah?
Than men, yes.
Thank you.
And so in the previous sessions, obviously, as you remember, some of the viewers who watched our previous sessions, we were able to give detailed statistics and the data. But for the purpose of tonight's session, we just want to go very practical to digest, to get more understanding of the impact. And if you happen to be a victim, what you should do and the support available. So ideally, we don't want to tonight dwell much on the statistics. Okay, so let's go to the types of the domestic abuse. So as I have already mentioned, we have emotional, physical, sexual, financial, or psychological abuse. And how does all these types of domestic abuse incident manifest in the relationship? So let's go practical here. It can be in the form of physical violence, kicking your partner, okay? Hitting, punching, rape. Somebody will now ask, what are you talking about? How can rape happen in a relationship? Yes, we have what we call marital rape. So, if you are in a relationship with somebody, does not mean that you have control over the woman's body. Intimacy, in other words, I hope children are not listening, so I'm trying not to be more direct. So, in a relationship, whether married or concubine, your partner's body, your woman's body, is not your property. You should get permission. No means no. It has to be consensual. So there is what we call marital rape. This is also another form of domestic abuse. It can be in the form of punching, hitting, throwing acid onto the partner. And in unfortunate situations, it can lead to killing of the partner. We all heard most recently the incident that happened in America to the Ghanaian couple, the pastor who shot the wife. So that was typical example of domestic abuse. So it can also be in the form of controlling someone's finances. That is what we call the financial abuse. We have couples where the man wants to be in charge of the woman's income. That's so the man can often withhold the income, or in the situation where the woman is not earning any income. For example, the stay-at-home moms. If the man is the only one earning income and you're withholding money from your partner because she's not working, that is another form of financial abuse.
Okay, Mr. Asamoah, I know that you are in a role there, but if we could allow Charmaine to also come in to talk about some of the types at this time, and then perhaps maybe Angie, if you could also just break it down a little bit in GBC2, so that we know that it is being reflected around. So can we at this time maybe bring in Charmaine to also talk about the types and also give some, just like you've done, Mr. Asamoah, give some of the examples of how it affects different groups of people in different ways.
Sure, and I would agree with what Martin has said. Also, in the UK, that there's other types on top of what has been mentioned. So we also have coercive control. We have honour-based violence, which is recognised here, and we have forced marriage comes under that, and we also have FGM is also recognised as part of domestic abuse as well. So I'll start with honour-based violence. So that we find largely, or in the UK, we find largely under the Asian community. I'm not saying it's all of them, but that's where we usually find it, and it's known as honour-based violence when a parent or a family feels a child is possibly too westernised or dishonouring their family, and they take a very extreme to the point of murder, sometimes abuse against the family. Now, I say it's largely, it can be found in other ways, in other cultures, should I say, but that's honour-based violence. We also have female genital mutilation, which is something which is banned in the UK, and I'm not sure if children are watching, so I'm not going to go deep into that one. And then the last is coercive control, which is probably the most difficult to prove, because it's this level of manipulative and power control violence against the person, and it creeps. It doesn't start out as seeming as violence. It can start out as, I don't like that dress today, can you change it? And you think they're doing something, nice for you, but as it goes on, they're telling you what to wear, how to dress, how to feel, and your mind doesn't feel like your own. You don't feel like yourself, but this other person, the perpetrator, has this level of power over you, where you feel you're questioning yourself, and you think you're silly, and they're convincing you the sky is green and it's blue, and you've put all your trust in them. And this coercive control is really dangerous, to the point of your mental capacity and ability, because it takes over, and it's a high level power of control over a person.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Charmaine. Domestic abuse. And Tiasia, any awarefo bi munti no edi entokwa bama ba kon a ne ho odinche ne yonko no eye ni yonko na yakayaka de ya chichem ye wo physical abuse, ye wo emotional abuse, ye wo psychological abuse, aka financial abuse, coercive control, and all that. Physical abuse ni nyina ne say obi yi ne nsa no de abo, na obebo an obe pian an obe proud na obe fe bibi no de abo, the use of instruments whether or the nsa once that obi be peja ne nsa wo so and na odi bibi be bo no na bia mumie no mo wo ayonko fa bi mu no ho ne ho na wo so hu say eye wo abuse inti no ye kasa ko nye be kire kwan a obi abefa so obi deal with it and na say obi pemmoa free enwuma koku a ewo ho a omo offer help. Ebi ni financial abuse, say sikastem wuni wo yire wo ho ana wuni ukunu wo ho we usika bia ne ho na efa wo pe bi kra to bibi o se me ma ana wo de ye den na chese ono na o control bibia wo de wuni say ana se bia woni be ma no ha na wo yire wo yire no ne bia bibi nti wunya adwuma na enu nti no wa with all this kind nyina the only talk be aduane o dia you just say ni na akodi ni ho nti asa wo hye na se more so why it is a slave nti no we say ebi a otimi ka say wa anye say ya me man we wa anye say na say o use scan e won ho no eno na odi control eno so ye financial abuse say ye ka say ebi a emotional abuse eno ye sha say di kan ejojo atia na o chese enipem kra na ogu anim ase untimi kra ni nkomo tem bia no ase ono wo different level unye wo ayi no wo de won come close nti no utim se wa ma wo wa feel say ase unye nipa kra usually no before e bro ne beba no sa ade no so ba tem didie na ototo ho na chete wa ma emotionally na wo no wa feel it ebi amekra me nse ana me mfata ana se nse se me wa ha because then bia no de ne nsem okeka na nu nsem obeka acho no yakra se nse bi ode de kan ana bibi atwa and no any emotional abuse yanko coercive control Charmaine just explained that to us but then no say any pano wa control wa to the extent say koha men koha enkasa we hu kasa we hu na chia no we uhia na atwam asare we enhye empaboa we emfataw unya phone call no sister koka che ni sister che say bibi a wo ye bia no ono no pese oye the lead uni fa hodie or control every move obema wa feel say bi adwen kra ni utim untimi enwe ma wo ho enti even say obi ni wo ka bibi kra no ma mu a ense say wi ya no na che say o de any say master the also so okay bia no na wo say wo ye de obeye bia wo say o che o say de o ye na ense say nka wo ye no sa because enye ne kwan no na che say wa control wa na wa ye say yo nda bia na wo di and obetima manipulate wa ma omo kro omo ben omo pese omo boa omo no wa ya na wa ma wo san twa ho time san kofo no wa ya na oni omo nyina ntem matete wa pam ho ni pe nyina na afi wa be ya isolated na tata fe your control wa uni obi akra akoka wa asem achen any coercive control for now on once we go along we will still bring it to you in the local language.
Absolutely. And I think that we were going to go into coercive control a little bit more as we go on. So thank you very much, Angie. Your tree is exceptional. I think that I need to come for tree classes. You are very good. You see my co-host, you see how competent she is in this area. She is wonderful indeed. Let's quickly, because of interest of time, let's look at the impact. And if we can, again, in that same vein, if we could start with Mr. Asamoah, if we can look at, if you unmute yourself, if you can look at some of the impact that domestic abuse have on victims. You are muted.
Oh, Angie, I think I need to come for 3 lessons from you, honestly.
10 pounds an hour for
Mr. Samuel, Charmaine wants to say something very quickly before you get in.
Very, very quickly, we just missed out the types. So there's stalking and harassment. So
let's break it down.
So stalking is when somebody's following you, not only in person, but online, on your social media, sending you letters, phoning you all the time. So they're constantly following everything that you're doing online and offline. And harassment, it comes a bit under stalking. So when they're bothering you all the time, so that's all the phone calls they're making. You go to meet somebody, they end up being there and just constantly bothering you. So them are two of the types of abuse, because obviously it impacts on you mentally, where you feel that you then can't plan anything because this person who's your perpetrator will show up. Sorry, I just wanted to quickly add that.
Please carry on, and can I ask that our viewers and those who have tuned in, please share your experience. I mean, they're talking about the different types. What other type? How has it affected the people around you? Because as we said that we are all affected by this. So let's get into this conversation. from what you've seen around you, wherever you are, whether you are in Ghana, whether you're in the US, whether you're in the UK, wherever you are situated, how is this domestic abuse, been seen around you, or whether we are able to recognize it? So we'll move on into the impact a little bit, but we want people to get involved in this, please. Mr. Martin, let's come to you.
Okay, so as Shamir has already mentioned, this thing that we are talking about, people may think is something remote from them, but those of us working in the front line, we know that this is unfortunate situation in the real life experience of many people out there. It's called hidden harm. And sometimes because of the shame, the stigma, the society's view, what people would talk about you in the community, people bottle it up. Out of shame, they don't want to talk about it. And the impact of that is damaging on two fronts. On the victims as women predominantly, and on children. Let me break it down. And I'm sure Charmaine will talk more about the impact of domestic abuse on the women, more especially, or the adult. On the part of the children who witness domestic abusive relationship from their parents, they can suffer from all sort of mental health issues. They can become truant in school. Mm-hmm. For older boys, mm-hmm. what they tend to do is they normalize the abusive behavior of their fathers that they witness at home. So what they tend to do is they normalize it and then they become aggressive. So in most cases, you get a call from school that this teenager, this young boy, sometimes very young children, they behave in a very inappropriate way, which is not age expected. You see very young children sometimes very aggressive towards their fellow students or friends at school playgrounds. Then you ask yourself why. Children will behave outside home based on most often what they have witnessed at home. So these are some of the harmful impact and effect of domestic abuse. When children witness some of these unhealthy behaviors at home, the children normalize it. And remember, children are at their formative years. So whatever they see, they can normalize it. So I've talked about the children, the impact on the children at this in school or playground. How about when the children grow up and they become adults? Because on the part of the boys, growing up, seeing their mothers being treated in that way, unfortunately, they grow up thinking it's normal, it's okay to treat women like how they saw their fathers treating their moms. This is real experience, okay? On the part of the girl child, they also grow up witnessing their mothers normalizing abusive relationship from their fathers, normalizing it. All the types that we've already outlined and explained. So when they grow up, this thing works like a magic. And when a psychologist is to come here and digest and explain this to you, you understand why some girls, especially girls, they behave in a very inappropriate way. Because they normalize it. And remember, children are at their formative years. So whatever they see, they can normalize it. So only get attracted to, unfortunately, undesirable men. You ask yourself, you see fine girl, but only attract to undesirable men who are abusive. Okay, how do we come to this? When you do assessment and you break down, you take that mother or that girl to her childhood background and start that journey, okay, you understand the experience that mother, that young mom, that woman has experienced as a child by normalizing abusive relationship. And to deconstruct this, to break that cycle, it takes time. And unfortunately, when children are involved, then it becomes a vicious cycle. It's very, very unhealthy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. Obviously, the impact of domestic violence on children is something that is on a very high scale. Majority of the time, parents don't realize, or they pay less attention. But I think we just want to take this opportunity to let people know that the impact on children, the significant harm, the emotional impact, the psychological impact, it affects their behavior, it affects their thought patterns. There's a lot there because they are still young children. So they grow up with all sorts in their minds because of what they have witnessed. Now, can we move on to Charmaine, please? If you can tell us more about the impact on the adults, from your work experience.
Yes, of course. We see the impact I see the impact on women twofold. So the first is the holistic impact upon their well-being, on their mental health, on their physical health, whether they have had violence or not, their physical health can be impacted on. So they can feel low appetite, low self-esteem, low confidence, no belief in their self at all. They feel unworthy and feel to blame for being in a domestic abusive relationship, although a lot of it is about control around them. We have women, the other is the societal impact. So usually when women are the victims of domestic abuse, they have to leave their home, they have to move away from their family, they have to now start a process of telling their stories to many different agencies like social services, like the police, like domestic support services. So they lose their home, they probably lose all their belongings because they're back at their family home. They usually lose money in some sort of way. So if they're used to a certain lifestyle, or if they've always had money away from them, they've had to now apply for benefits, say, or something different like that. They lose who they are. That's the impact. The most biggest impact is losing who they were before they entered that abusive relationship. And sometimes what we find is they still believe, if they haven't had the right level of support, counselling, etc., they then go back into these abusive relationships because it's a pattern of behaviour for them. It's what they deem as love. This really abusive relationship as love, because that person has convinced them that that's what love can be. So the impact starts with on the inside, but all the environmental and social impacts around them is also devastating because they have to restart their life. And sometimes, especially in the UK, to keep the woman safe, they have to move miles and miles away from their family because this perpetrator is a really high risk and will go to the point where they kill them. So they have to move away from everything they know. So they lose themselves, they lose their property, they lose their family, they lose their friends. In some cases, they lose their children. They lose a lot.
Yeah. Thank you for
The
that.
impact is devastating.
Yeah, because that's and I think what you're saying is one of the factors that contribute to these women,
Yeah.
that pattern, that cycle. Instead of them looking at the scale of the consequences, they think, oh,
Yeah.
let me just go back to him.
Yes.
Let's just get back together. Let's just hope that it's going to get better. Things are going to change.
Yes.
And maybe one tiny assurance from the perpetrator, they run straight back, and they think, the shame, the instability is causing me and my children. I have to move away. Some of them loses their job. So because of all of that, they feel that, you know what, let me just go back to the relationship and
Yes.
see if
It's
it
easy.
will work. And
It's
then
easier to
that,
go
that
back.
brings about that pattern.
Yeah.
It keeps going. It keeps
Yeah.
going. It keeps going. Charmaine, can you throw just a little bit more light on
Yes.
the aftermath? Say, for example, they've broken up and
Yes.
the woman has gone far. Is there any chance of domestic abuse even when the relationship has ended?
Yes, there is. There is. It's really horrible when a woman comes to me. She's in because as well. To get out of these abusive relationships, what I found is that you have to be ready. We can tell a woman 50 times you need to leave because that man will really harm you, and until she is ready, she won't. So we can put safeguarding stuff around her, but she has to be ready to leave. So once they've broken up from the relationship, what we advise women to do is to change absolutely everything: their social media, their telephone number, to limit contacting family, to limit contacting friends, because we know the perpetrator will use as many aspects as possible, even places like social services. The men sometimes can use as access to get to the women. I've physically seen it. I'm not saying it happens everywhere, but we've seen it all the time. I've been in court with women where we've had to block into a room because the man is walking around looking for them. If they can't get to them, they will contact their family with the stories. They will contact their friends with the stories. Or sometimes they find out where the woman is. They find her, and she could be 100 miles away. And somehow they find her, they turn up on the doorstep, and she has to move from another refuge. So the abuse doesn't stop. We take out things like restraining orders here, and
Non-molestation order.
non orders, yeah. I was thinking, I know the word then, non-mol orders. But sometimes they're not effective. We can put markers on the women's house as well, but they're not effective. The man, or the perpetrator, should I say, if they really want to get to the woman, they find ways so the abuse still contacts, or they will do things like post nude photos of them on social media, or send things to them like flowers or chocolates or something really nice to try and get them back into that relationship.
Thank you very much for that. And before I bring Mr. Asamoah in as we carry on, look, I know that my co-host can't see the chats, but boy, man, Mr. Dumenya is flooding the chats with his long teases again. We've said that most of the things that is put there, we want to put it on screen, but Mr. For instance, if you look at this, it will cover everybody's face. And we, so please keep it short and sweet. He's making some very valid points in the comments, but I want to bring it on screen. So, Mr. Dumenya, I know that you always say that it's not for screen, but for people who are reading at the background. But please make it short and concise so that we can all benefit and put it on screen for everybody to, be able to reflect on some of these things. But it is staggering what Charmaine just said, that in the US, some of the statistics says that over 70% of the homicides, of the killings, are after the person has actually left the relationship.
Yeah,
over 70%. And so it is really scary. And as Charmaine is saying, as we get closer into our discussion, we are going to look at what is the appropriate ways for somebody to separate from a violent partner. Because if the over 70% are dying, that is the reason why people stay. Because when you ask them, I mean, the normal question that we always ask is, why are the people staying? Why can't you just get up and leave? But when you look at the statistics, you can see that it is not as easy as it is said. But I want to bring Mr. Asamoah in as we move on in our discussions, where we want to look at coercive control a little bit, a bit more. And Charmaine did explain this before quite well. So I don't know whether you want Charmaine to have a stab at it first or before you come in, Mr. Samuel.
I don't mind, but so yeah, I can stand then. Charmaine can come in, then I will yeah, then I will finish it. Okay. So and then Charmaine, thank you. You made very interesting comment about the difficulty in separating the abuser from the victim. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So there has been very interesting research on this, and more research are coming. So those of you are from an academic background, I'm sure you might have heard what is called Stockholm syndrome. Okay, where the perpetrator can psychologically able to control the victim, for the victim to become emotionally and psychologically depend, not only financially. So financially, emotionally, psychologically, to depend on the victim. So in a nutshell, it will make the victim feel that without the perpetrator, somebody who is abusing you, without him, that you cannot survive. Okay, it's a very complex thing to understand. Okay, that is why the victim need a lot of support. I will make it brief. I know I talk a lot. Okay, I know that. So then the other thing, there's this thing called, which is not very common. If you are not working in the front line, you may not be aware of it. There's something called planting. This is whereby you manage to support the victim through the court, the police, and all the other agencies like Shemi's organizations. Then you manage to sometimes get the perpetrator into prison. Okay? It's a hard work. It takes a lot of work to get the perpetrator into prison custody. That doesn't end there. In the prison, the perpetrator can still work that magic. I don't know how they manage to do it. To get their friend, okay, to befriend the victim in the way as if he's coming to protect the victim, without the victim knowing that this person who has come in is coming to spy on her, so that to prevent other men from coming to the woman until the perpetrator has finished serving his sentence and come back and take over. So this is very, very complex. And if you're a professional working with such victims, you need to be extra vigilant to understand all these difficult dynamics. And it's dangerous also that you, the professional, your life is sometimes even at risk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Angie, I'm not sure whether you want to translate this in the local language.
No, not now, Mr. Samuel. What I want, if I can ask you to come back on board, please. And you know, before we did mention about that incident that happened in the US quite recently.
Yeah.
We know that the couple had then separated, isn't it? The lady was living elsewhere and the man was living elsewhere. But then, you know, for whatever reason, he took an opportunity and just, you know, ended the lady's life. Now, what I want us to, because we're talking about the coercive control, what I want us to, you know, through a little bit more, like maybe you for now and then Charmaine can jump in, is, you know, what we say, the words we use. It can be part of the emotional abuse side of things. It can be a threat. You know, it can be some sort of warning. But we know that this man clearly made a very clear statement. If I don't kill you, then I am fake. Said it boldly in the face of, you know, the lady, the brother, and whoever else was there. But at the end of the day, give it, a day or two later, we all know that he really carried out that attack. Can we dwell a little bit on, what these perpetrators say to these victims and how peculiar these statements might be, and how these victims should take those words? Don't just listen to it and brush it off. How can they deal with words that comes out of the mouth of these perpetrators towards them and manage it in a way to keep themselves safe? If I can ask you to come in, Mr. Martin Luther King, please, just to throw a bit more light on that.
Okay, so it's always very important to trust your intuition. Your instinct is extremely important. So, from my professional point of view, whenever I'm dealing with this extreme level risk of abuse, that you think that the level of risk is severe, okay, you don't take chances. You spell it out to the victim that you are at a risk of death. So you don't just say it, you act upon it. This is where, so on the part of professionals, on a multi-agency level, working with the police to gather all the necessary intelligence and information, and other sister agencies to coordinate, to support the victim. In the case of the US, I have followed it, and I think there were some missed opportunities. Okay, so the woman, the victim, should have acted earlier. Okay, and also on a practical level, while we tend to say it, some of the victims, because of that emotional attachment that they have developed with the perpetrator, it's always very difficult to believe and trust their own instinct that that partner can ever carry on with a threat. So the advice to women out there, that if your partner, current partner, your ex-partner makes any slightest threat to take your life, to harm you, do not take it lightly. Take it serious.
Yeah.
Because human being, psychologically, we can react to situations when it comes to emotions, emotional feelings. And remember, most of these perpetrators, most of the domestic abusive perpetrators, most of them, they also are all victims of their own circumstances based on their own childhood upbringing. Some of them struggle to regulate their own emotional feelings.
Yeah.
And that's why they have the capacity to do that horrible things and the harm that they are able to meted out to their victims. So it's always important that you trust and listen to your self-instinct. Always put yourself first, your safety first, the safety of yourself and your children first.
Okay, thank you very much. I've just seen a comment from Madame Ophelia saying that abusive language and threats, any of that towards you, you have to report it as soon as possible, and that's true. Anything that has been said to you, whether it's a threat or from a partner, a current partner, previous partner, report it as soon as possible. Don't leave it lying there. Otherwise it can be too late. At some point. All right, then. Can I come to you, Charmaine, please? If you can throw a bit more light on that for us.
Yes, problem improving coercive control we found is that it's not like physical harm where you can see the bruises and you can see what's happened to somebody. Coercive control is like invisible fears that are happening. So when you're going to, and it's about understanding that coercive control is happening to you, and the level of manipulation that happens is not sometimes until a person is out of that situation that they've understood that it's happening to them. When people are saying abusive things to you, you can hear that. But when they put it in a way where they seem like they're doing something good for you, so like I said earlier, oh, you might want to change out of that dress. You'd look prettier in trousers, say for a woman, or oh, don't wear that shirt tonight. Wear something a bit looser and baggier. And you think they're doing it for because they love you, because they want to protect you, but actually it's these subtle ways of controlling you. And I'm not trying to say that if somebody says that to you it's always coercive control, but that's how it can actually start. So by the time it comes to a point where it's really abusive and really impacting on where you're thinking, is that me, is that not, that's when your intuition has to kick in, that this isn't seeming right. Now he's telling me that he doesn't like my hair this way and that way, or picking all my clothes. First it was just a tie, now it's a whole suit that she's picking for me, and it's every time we go out. And it's about understanding that pattern, and unless it's recorded or somebody else is seeing it, it's really difficult to go to somebody and say, well, he always tells me what to wear, because all they'll say is, well, why do you wear it then? And it's not that simple. The control and the power over you and the level of abuse that is happening to you at that time, it's not as simple as saying, it's like we just said the question, why don't women leave? Because sometimes it's not that simple. It's understanding what's happening to you and abusive. And when it happens over a long period of time, and I don't mean 1 week, 2 weeks, I'm talking months, years, it's only when somebody either points it out to you or you get to a point where you're going, this is enough. Now I can't even speak to my friends. Now I can't even wear what I want. Now actually I'm dressing like somebody who I wouldn't even recognise because somebody keeps telling me to do it. So I think the difficulties in proving it when it's happened to you is because it's quite invisible. And unless you're recording it, which you probably wouldn't record things like that, it's hard to say, but we can see it as frontline workers, because we can see the devastation and the isolation and the dehumanization of that person.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I've just seen a comment that says that if we're trying to break the cycle, I think it's from somebody, it came as a flash, I couldn't really catch the name, but what it's basically saying is, if we want to break the cycle of domestic abuse and we place everything on the victim to try and break that cycle, it's here now. Breaking the cycle of abuse becomes substantially harder when so much of the burden falls on survivors, and I think that's what I'm trying to say. So in terms of if we're moving on to how to break the cycle, how to protect ourselves, what can be done, or what is available in terms of support to the victims, in terms of what can be done to the perpetrators, because I think from this comment, that's how it has been. Those of us in the social services, we always try to tell the victim, oh, why don't you leave? Why are you still here? Let's move you to that refuge. Let's move you to that refuge. Let's send you to what do you call it? Triple P program. Let's send you to safe parenting sessions. So, we do all of that with the victim. The victim can move far away. We can move them 2-3 times in a period of like 4 months for their own safety. We can change their telephone numbers. We can do all of that. But there's a question of, what do we do about the perpetrators? What is out there? Because if you send the perpetrators up to brighter futures, they probably will not even complete the program. 12-week program, you're lucky if they do three weeks of them, they don't turn up again, and they keep pestering, trying to get back to these victims. And we are telling the victims, move, do this, do. What can we do about the perpetrators? Shall I come to you, Mr. Martin, please?
You've raised very important point. I don't want to be gender biased here, but that's the reality. Okay. We have to look at this from multifaceted approach, in a sense that historically the focus and the approach in terms of support available prevention has always been on victims focus approach. And I think gradually there is increasing shift of culture, which is very slow, but it's happening, that more services are being provided to support the perpetrators. If I take you briefly to what I outlined or explained earlier on, most of these perpetrators themselves are victims of their own circumstances. That is what they have witnessed. Most of them, if you sit down and look at their childhood background and deconstruct their history, you see that most of these perpetrators have gone through horrible, horrible childhood experiences. So, if I say multifaceted approach, that's why we, as parents now, we need to make sure that our children do not go through that horrible experience of witnessing domestic abusive relationship. That is the most important area in terms of breaking the cycle that we need to focus on, because the adult perpetrators, I would say the damage has already been done and it's very difficult to undo it. But as I said, it's the reality on the ground in terms of operational and resource-led issues. There isn't much available in terms of services for perpetrators as compared to the victims. So the person who made the comment is absolutely right. We continue to put the burden on the victims, okay, instead of focusing on the perpetrators, okay. So this is something that is very. I think we need a new approach of thinking nationally, locally, community, and it's a conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I think most of the time the perpetrators become even defiant to the support that's available. And sometimes, if there's not enough evidence, the police will always say, without substantial evidence, we don't have enough evidence to prosecute. By the time you notice, the victim is dropping the charges. The victim is no longer in support of prosecution. So the police then have no power to even push it further. Sometimes, in extreme circumstances, they will say that even if the victim is no longer supporting prosecution, they will still go ahead and prosecute, depending on the severity of the matter. But majority of the time, victim drop their statements, police out of the scene, social services has a job to carry on supporting the victim. But the perpetrator, even if it's on a child protection plan, sometimes they choose not to even oblige. And that is why I think there's a lot more projects out there giving support to victims, especially women and children, putting them in refuge, changing their phones for them, putting them far away from their own familiar areas, just to keep them safe. So, just to answer the question of the person who put that comment out there, I think nationally there's a cry for some sort of support or work to be available for perpetrators, unless they go to prison. And even so, the victims are still not like completely free. So that is why, programs like these, we bring them to your attention: protection, preventing, trying to stopping yourself before you get to the point where it becomes difficult to kind of retrace your steps. All right, can I come to you, Charmaine, please?
Sure can, of course.
Yeah, if you
I would say this is the difficult thing when you're working in this level of abuse and you are speaking to other agencies. I have women come to me that have to jump through hoops after being victimized, after being abused, after being bullied, after being isolated. And I think it's Demenya, is putting some fantastic descriptions of stuff, but the reality is totally different to what's happening there. So as a charity, when I have a woman come to me who's ready, and when I mean ready, she's had enough. She knows that the next step is that she's going to be murdered or her children are going to be taken away or something else. We have to put in months and months and months of support around her. We have to advocate for our meetings because she's never had a voice before and doesn't know how to advocate. We have to put her through counselling so she knows who she is. She'll possibly have to live in a refuge, which means she has a single room, as if it's a single woman, a single room where she has to share with other people in trauma. She has to go on courses, try and re-educate herself. She has to understand money for herself. And all on top of that, she has to change everything, be away from her family, and then have to go through a police incident, police crime log, where sometimes they aren't very helpful, or sometimes it's exhausting to go to court for your children, then go to court for this incident, and you want to prosecute, but you're human who's just gone through the most level of trauma, what's happening. And we have some agencies out there that their funding can only support women for a certain amount of time.
That's right,
and they'll work at absolutely key things. They need holistic support for about 2 years, and sometimes the restrictions in other areas like social services with your children is less than 2 years, especially if they're babies, because the focus is on the child. And then if they lose their child, that's another level of trauma that woman has to go through. So when we're looking at that, and that woman has to do all of that, the perpetrator, he can go off into another relationship. He might not even get arrested. He may not even be seen. He may actually be seen as the victim because all the manipulation and lies he'll use with all the agencies, she'll look like the bad person because it's constantly victim blaming. And as a victim, as a woman, she's supposed to have protected her kids. She's supposed to have never gone into a relationship with an abusive man. She's supposed to know that if he hits her once, she leaves. But we know that she's probably grown up in a level of trauma because we've already said he's probably grown up in a level of trauma. And that excuses his behaviour, but hers is an excuse because she's a woman who should know better. And because of that, we have women constantly put in this position where they have to firefight so many things around them. It's exhausting. They want to give up. It's easier to go back. It's easier to drop the police case. What's not easy, and it's nice that people can put people into 1, 2, 3, 4 refuges. But if you think, I've been in my house for 10 years, and the one before that I was in for 28, 9 years, I wouldn't want to move. This is where I live. This is who I know. And to start again and to think about doing that, if you don't have that right level of support or you're not in that right frame of mind, and that's the thing, you might get the domestic abuse support, you might get your kids back, but there's other services that might not be ready, like mental health services in the UK. If you need that psychological testing and that psychotherapy, the lists are endless. So by then you've lost your kids.
You can wait forever.
Everything. Yeah, you can wait forever. By then you've lost your children, you've lost your family, you've lost everybody you know, you've moved away and started again, and this man still found you. Do you get what I mean? So it's always on the victim, where with the perpetrator, he doesn't turn up to the course, he doesn't get a fine, he doesn't get locked up in jail, he doesn't have to move away from his family. He's all right to stay where he is and has another relationship and keep abusing women. So I feel the problem is that we focus too much on the victim, definitely, and not enough on the perpetrator. There is not enough strict things. I read what people put in here. If we do coercive control and it's proven, we just said it's hard to prove coercive control. If she complains, then they'll arrest him, will they? Because most of the time, They don't. I know somebody who has a couple people waiting to be arrested in lockdown and they're not arrested.
Yeah.
Nobody's gone out to get them. So I think that the focus is too much on the victim while she's going through her trauma or while he's going through his, because we know it happens both ways, and not enough on the perpetrator. And I think what needs to change is us looking at the perpetrator and him having to go through the same amount of years and for the same amount of really, strenuous, multifaceted things. Then it comes back to him or the perpetrator and not the victim.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
That's
a bit passionate there. Sorry.
No. That is why we brought you here. With Mr. Samoa to enlighten us about some of the things that we overlook. Because we always think that it is so easy. We always think that it is easy to be able to do some of these things. Can we bring Mr. Samoa into the conversation, please, so that Mr. Samoa can also tell us some of the barriers to accessing some of these support?
Okay. Again, in terms of the barriers and the challenges in supporting or accessing support services for victims and also sometimes perpetrators, we can go on and on and on and on and on. Okay. Some of these challenges are resource-led. Okay. Without getting too political, we all know that for the past 10, 13 years, we know the spending cuts, social services budget has been battered, which also has affected voluntary sector, which is the third sector or the fourth sector, as politically some people may call it. Okay, so services like Charmaine's service, as some of you who have been around in this business, social work business for long, you know that they are absolutely crucial, vital to in terms of partnership with the statutory sector in delivering effective services for victims of domestic abuse and perpetrators. But unfortunately, most of their budget have been cut and continue to be cut and slashed. Only God knows, with the COVID situation, when we are able to eventually finally come out of it, only God knows what is going to happen. And my fear is that if the already battered service is hit again with financial cut, all these things that we're talking about, we will be coming back here in few years that we'll be talking about significant, serious issues. Okay, so these are some of the issues that we need to be aware of. Okay, so that's challenge number one, financial. Okay, the other areas in terms of the challenge that I just want to highlight is also in terms of legal challenges, immigration. This is cultural specific, community specific. Why? You know, some of our people, in terms of the immigration issues, we know that in the UK, the immigration policy continue to be hard and hard, making it very difficult. Okay, so the unintended consequences of some of this harsh immigration policy is that it created a hostile environment for people who are suffering domestic abusive relationship to even come forward for the fear of being deported. And some of the perpetrators, especially in the community, in the ethnic minority communities, use that as a tool to threaten and also to control some of the victims. I have personally dealt with many situations cases where the victims are even afraid. When there are services available, the victims are afraid to even come forward because their visa they have dependent visa, and the victims cannot leave because the fear that if she leaves the relationship, she is going to be deported.
Yeah.
These are all structural, legal issues that are hostile to the very victims that the system is supposed to protect. So I just want to end there because if I go on, I'll keep talking. So, so I just want to
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Martin. But can I just say one thing very quickly about what you just said? Immigration issues. Maybe at some point that will be another whole day's topic, talking about immigration and domestic abuse. If you're a woman, you've been with a husband, a partner, whatever you call it, you have kids, you don't have the legal status to be in the country, but he has the legal status to be in the country. He's using his legal status to control you, to coerce you, to manipulate you, to put fear in you. Please be brave to come forward. I am using this medium to inform you all that there is help available. Don't be scared. Don't die in silence. So long as you've been with him, you've got children with him, you don't have the status, your visa expired 10 years ago, but you are experiencing domestic abuse and he's using his power, his status in the country as his power to control you and do all sorts to you. Be brave, don't die in silence, seek help. You can contact us, Gaswa. We will give you the directions and help you to access support services in the community. We've done it many times over in our various local authorities, in our workplaces for a lot of women. There is a lot of support out there. So please be aware, if somebody is watching who knows somebody and who also knows somebody who is going through that sort of problem, please give them some hope from tonight. Tell them there is support available. They should rise out of that domestic situation and seek for support.
Yes, thank you very much for that information. We are running out of time again. That is what happens to us every time we're having a good conversation. We see that the time is cropping up on us. Can we go briefly to look at how to spot the warning signs? Because these are the things that we always miss. From the beginning of the relationship, the person is saying that if you leave me, I'm going to commit suicide. If you leave me, I'm going to die. If you do this to me, I'm going to do this. Oh, I've missed you so much. Where are you? Constantly, trying to keep tabs on you. And you think, oh, the person is so caring. And then those things then change so quickly. So let's come to you, Shemaine. That please, we know we are running out of time, but just tell us some of the warning signs.
I'll go very quickly. First and most important is to have boundaries. You should have boundaries for yourself, which things you will not tolerate, and that will help let you see warning signs. So if they ask to constantly see your phone, if they're constantly checking where you are, if they want to know where you are all the time, if they threaten to hurt you, if you do this, I'm going to do that, any of that sort of language around you. If they say something to you and you feel it's wrong, trust that intuition as well. But most importantly, have boundaries, know your value, know your worth, and if anything sounds or feels off key, then it's possibly not a road that you want to go down.
Okay, thank you very much, Charmaine. Can I just quickly throw this in that you need to check the background of that person as well? That will
Definitely
be your warning sign right from the start. If you meet somebody that you've never known before, you need to run some background check about that person, and the information you find, don't just feel that because he loves me so much he's not gonna do that to me. If you've known or you've heard or you've been told that he did that to an ex-partner, Don't sit around and think that you're the most beautiful one, so he's not going to do that to you. Use the Clare's law. Walk to any police station, or just tell them you want to use the Clare's law to find information about somebody. Give them their name, their date of birth. They will tell you their history, whether they've been known to the police and what for. They will tell you what you need to know to help you make that decision. Shall we move on to Mr. Asamoah, please?
Okay,
you can tell us about the warning sign.
Yeah. So I will be brief here. So first of all, it's important that you respect.
Mr. Asamoah, your sound. We can't hear you properly.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think it's.
You keep on talking. It gets better.
Okay. So intuition is the best tool we have to help to prevent domestic violence. And remember the statistics: over 30,000 women die every year in the hands of their current romantic partner or ex-romantic partner.
Why you are romantic?
Okay, I just want to make it okay. So most are so at the hands of their partners, ex-partners or their current partners, please respect your intuition. Very important. Do not talk yourself out of this or normalize violent behavior that you witness. It's not acceptable. Stop debating or questioning your own observations. Please stop debating or questioning your own intuitions or observations. It's really important. Human brains are hardwired to pick up on signs of danger. This is really important. Our human brains are wired up to pick up signs of danger that tell us that something is wrong. If you feel that someone is in danger, you are in danger, they are most likely to hurt you. That ought to happen. Do not legitimize that violence. Don't normalize it. Don't accept it. Violence in a relationship is never and should never be legitimate way of handling disagreements or strong emotions. That is what Shemin said, the boundary setting. Very important. Okay.
Yeah, and can I just say that should form the foundation of the relationship right from the word go. You need to find that boundaries. It doesn't matter how wobbly it can be, but right from the word go, find that boundaries and stay within that. If you see the signs and you ignore it right from the beginning, that's it for you. Probably will never be able to address it later on if it continues to happen.
All right, we've run out of time. So please, for your final words, please tell us in 30 seconds how you think we can, we cannot eradicate domestic abuse. It's always going to be with us, whether we like it or not. But how do we minimize it? How do we stop it to some extent? How do we prevent it to a large extent on the individual, maybe on the family and the societal level? Can I start with Charmaine, please?
Okay, very quickly, to minimise abuse, I would definitely say have your boundaries, read up and educate yourself, confide in your friends, love yourself, because sometimes we don't love ourselves, so we take this really horrible love from other people, and just feel empowered. I'm going to go from a holistic point of view, so just keep yourself very, very safe and very, very boundaried.
Mr. Luther King?
So get help. Speak out. Don't don't normalize it. Speak out. Report it. Your body, you're in charge of your body as a woman or as a man. Okay? And don't allow your partner to take control for you. If you are not happy in the relationship, report it, speak out. There are support available out there.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And
Thank
what
you.
I will add to that is that you have to have your confidence.
Mhm.
Don't be too scared if the man is threatening to leave you because you didn't do XYZ. Be
Mhm.
confident in yourself. Find your boundaries right from the word go. If don't let anybody put fear in you that you are not in the best position. You are not the type of woman he wants, and therefore because you are so scared, you kind of succumb to any rubbish from any man. Be yourself, be strong. Women, especially who I'm talking to, be strong, be yourself. If you find the love, the love will stick around. If they are using all sorts to threaten you, don't be scared. Just let them go.
Absolutely. Let them go. Yes, we have responsibility. We have to keep on talking about this. And that is how we help. We need to make sure that we shine a light on this. Let's talk about abusive behaviors. Let's not talk too much about the victims and why are they staying and why can't they leave. Let's identify sin and call it by its name. Let's see that these things are dangerous. Let's spot it early. If your son or your daughter gets into early relationships and you start seeing the sign, talk to them. Let them see what the signs are. So as we said, please make sure that we all shine a light on this topic. We want to thank our guests so much. So let's start off, and Angie, if you can help us as we thank Madame Charmaine.
Wow. What can I say? Charmaine.
Charmaine.
Amazing. Well done. Thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thank you for having me.
We couldn't have had any other. That's so great. We thank you for your time, your experience that you've been willing to throw out there. It was powerful. I believe our viewers have really fed on quite a good amount of, some information from you, which is so powerful that they can just work with. Martin Luther King, our very own homegrown Martin. Thank you so much for stepping in at the very last minute. You've been so helpful. We know we can always count on you. So that's why it's very grateful to you. We thank you, Mr. Frank, for being our host. Well done. You've been doing a good job. Well done to you. And thank you all to our viewers for joining us. Please carry on sharing. Share on your walls, share on your page, inform your friends. This will still be out there for people to watch if they want to go and watch it over and over again. Share it with your friends, invite them, like our page, subscribe to our page, click that bell button so that you can always be alert. We can always alert you when we have any show going. So thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you next time.
Okay, right. So before our guests go, and before we wait a second, because we're going to say something about co-host before she goes. But before our guests go, please say thank you to them. Please thank them as Obaya has already started doing. Please type in there thank you to our guests. Let them feel love. We want Charmaine to come back. Mr. Samoa is a regular. He's been here a few times. We want Charmaine to definitely come back. This is a topic, as we said, that we want to bring back over and over again when we need to talk about it repeatedly. So please say thank you to Charmaine and Mr. Samoa if you are watching us. Thank you. It is coming through. It started coming through. Yes, it started coming through. Send them through. We really appreciate that. We appreciate that. So we want to thank Charmaine so much, and we want to say that God bless you so much, and goodbye, and we'll talk later.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right then. So bye for now.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Charmaine. Thank you.
All right. Can we also say thank you to Mr. Asamoah? Some of them are delayed reactions. Some of them are still coming through. Yes, Mr. Martin Luther King, as always, very informative, very knowledgeable, and he never disappoints. Every time we listen to him.
That's why. Service to the community. Thank you so much.
All right then. Bye for now, Mr. Asamoah. All right, wonderful. Now, please, those of us who are left here, I know most of the people have left in the process, but please, can we thank our super competent co-host, Madam Angela Pia, who's been absolutely brilliant tonight. Please, let's say a big thank you to our co-host, Angela. The love is coming through. Thank you very much. Please, those who are still watching, can we thank her for her wonderful co-hosting abilities, and especially the tree. Wow, her tree is fantastic. Yes. It's coming through. Yes, well done to everybody, and well done to our listeners and our guests too. So thank you very much for coming through. Wonderful. Before we go, we want to show you something briefly. Where's the gun? Oh boy. I want to show you something briefly before we go. We have some good news to share. Bear with me 1 second. Let me bring this to screen. Yes, okay. So we've got some good news to share. If I can be able to share my screen with you all. Quickly. I know that it's time for us to go quickly. Yes, first of all, we want to share this with our viewers. That Gaswa, has been selected as part of the Ghana Union Midlands to do some preventative work, to do some online work, to educate people about COVID and how it's impacted on us, because it's created so much panic and fear within us, and some of the things that we can do. And Gaswa has been selected, and this has been funded by it's funded by the lottery, and Gaswa is one of the delivery partners. Ghana Union Greater Birmingham is part of it. The Grain, that is the Ghana Union Association in the North Hams, are part of it, and Ghana Nurses Association, I think they are located in Coventry, are also part of the delivery partners. The other thing that we want to share very quickly is the next session in line with this, because they've told us that they are doing this. So if I can bring that to my screen very quickly, I'll show you what it looks like. Yes, so on the 24th of October, Ghana Union Greater Birmingham is kicking off with this preventative work to stop the fear. And as they've captioned it, they call it How to Manage, Cope and Overcome Fear of Coronavirus Disease. So it is an important topic. Please make it a point to tune in on the 24th of October at 7 p.m. prompt. The links are there. We will share it on our Gaswa platform for people to be able to tune in. So thank you very much for that. All right. So on that note, we want to say goodbye. Angela, can you say goodbye to our viewers, and let's wrap this up. And yes, next time we come, we want to treat mental health within children and adolescents. It's a topic that we've been planning for a very long time. But on the 30th of October, when we have our next section, that is the topic that will be coming your way. So over to you, Angela, to wrap it up for us.
Right. So join us next time. Let's talk more about our social issues and discuss solutions for ourselves. Thank you for joining us. This is Gaswa, Ghanaian Social Workers Association. We are a group of social workers who do a lot of outreach work just to create awareness and do preventative work. So like our page and always join us when we come on the show. Thank you all. Goodbye.
And goodbye from me too. It's been wonderful having all of you. Same time on the 30th. Let's meet again. Goodbye, everybody.